Why did the dynamics of the group fluctuate so? Here they were on Mars, where the seasons were twice as long as Earth's, and every day was 40 minutes longer. Why couldn't people relax? Nadia had a sense that there was time for things, even though she was always busy. And the extra 39 and a half minutes per day was probably the most important component of this feeling. Human circadian biorhythms had been set over millions of years of evolution. And now, suddenly, to have extra minutes of day and night, day after day, night after night, no doubt had its effects. Nadia was sure of it, because despite the hectic pace of every day's work and the way she passed out in sheer exhaustion every night, she always woke rested. That strange pause on the digital clocks, when at midnight the figures hit 12:00:00 and suddenly stopped, and the unmarked time passed. Sometimes it seemed for a very long time indeed, and then snapped on to 12:00:01 and began its usual inexorable flicker. Well, the Martian time slip was something special. Often Nadia would sleep through it, as were most of them. As were most of the rest of them. But Hiroko had a chant that she chanted during it when she was up. And she and the farm team, and many of the rest of them, spent every Saturday night partying and chanting the chant through the time slip. Something in Japanese. Nadia never learned what, though she sometimes hummed along, sitting enjoying the vault and her friends. But one Saturday night she sat there, nearly comatose. But one Saturday night when she sat there, nearly comatose, Maya came over and sat against her shoulder for a talk. Maya, with her beautiful face, always well-groomed, always the latest in Chikarnost, even in their the Vogue, I don't know what that means. Chikarnost, chic, highest chic, even in their everyday jumpsuits, looking distraught. Nadia, you have to do me a favor. Please, please. What? I need you to tell something to Frank for me. Why don't you do it yourself? I can't have John seeing us talk. I have to get a message to him, and please, Nadezhda Francine, you're my only way. Nadia made a disgusted noise. Please. It was surprising how much Nadia would have rather been talking to Anne or Samantha or Arkady, if only Arkady would come down from Phobos. But Maya was her friend, and that desperate look on her face, Nadia couldn't stand it. What message? Tell him that I'll meet him tonight in the storage area. Maya said imperiously. At midnight, to talk. Nadia sighed, but later she went to Frank and gave him the message. He nodded without meeting her eye, embarrassed, grim, unhappy. Then, a few days later, Nadia and Maya were cleaning up the brick floor of the latest chamber to be pressurized, and Nadia's curiosity got the better of her, and asked Maya what was going on. "Well, it's John and Frank," Maya said querulously. Querulously. "Well, it's John and Frank. They're very competitive. They're like brothers, and there's a lot of jealousy there. John got to Mars first, and then he got permission to come back again. And Frank doesn't think it was fair. Frank did a lot of the work in Washington to get the colony funded, and he thinks John has always taken advantage of his work. And now, well, John and I are good together. I like him. It's easy with him. Easy, but maybe a little, I don't know, not boring, but not exciting. He likes to walk around, hang out with the farm crew. He doesn't like to talk that much. Frank, well, now we could talk forever. Argue forever, maybe. But at least we're talking. And you know, we had a very brief affair on the Aries, back at the beginning. And it didn't work out, but he still thinks it could." "Why would he think that?" Nadia mouthed. "So he keeps trying to talk me into leaving John and being with him. And John suspects that that's what he's doing. So there's a lot of jealousy between them. I'm just trying to keep them from each other's throats, that's all." Nadia decided to stick to her resolve and not ask about it again. But now she was involved, despite herself. Maya kept coming to her to talk and to ask her to convey messages to Frank for her. "I'm not a go-between," Nadia kept protesting, but she kept doing it. And once or twice, when she did, she got into long conversations with Frank. About Maya, of course. Who she was, what she was like, why she acted the way she did. "Look," Nadia said to him, "I can't speak for Maya. I don't know why she does what she does. You have to ask her yourself. But I can tell you, she comes out of the old Moscow Soviet culture, university and CP for both her mother and her grandmother. And men were the enemies. Soviet culture, university, and Communist Party for both her mother and her grandmother. And men were the enemies for Maya's babushka, and for her mother too. It was a matryoshka. Maya's mother used to say to her, 'Women are the roots, men are just the leaves.' There was a whole culture of mistrust, manipulation, fear." Babushka. There was a whole culture of mistrust, manipulation, fear. That's where Maya comes from. And at the same time, we have this tradition of amicochanstvo. Amicochanstvo. A kind of intense friendship, where you learn the very tiniest details of your friend's life. You invade each other's lives, in a sense. And of course, that's impossible. And it has to end, usually badly. Frank was nodding at this description, recognizing something in it. Nadia sighed and went on. These are the friendships that lead to love. And then love has the same sort of trouble, only magnified, especially with all the fear at the bottom of it. And Frank, tall, dark, and somehow handsome, bulky with power, spinning with his own internal dynamo, the American politician, or so Nadia thought of him, now wrapped around the finger of a neurotic Russian beauty. Frank nodded humbly and thanked her, looking discouraged. As well he should. Nadia did her best to ignore all that, but it seemed everything else had turned problematic as well. Vlad had never approved of how much time they were spending on the surface in the daytime, and now he said, we ought to stay under the hill most of the time, and bury all the labs as well. Outdoor work should be restricted to an hour in the early mornings and another in the late afternoons, when the sun is low. I'll be damned if I stay indoors all day, Anne said, and many agreed with her. We've got a lot of work to do, Frank pointed out. But most of it could be done by teleoperation, Vlad said. And it should be. What we are doing right now is the equivalent of standing 10 kilometers from an atomic explosion. So, Anne said, soldiers did that. Every 6 months, Vlad finished and stared at her. Every 6 months. Would you do that? Even Anne looked subdued. No ozone layer. Oh, ad alert. Sorry. Thank you for the ad alert. That's very helpful. One goes off every hour, 15 minutes. At least last time I checked. So we do what we can, but I literally have like forced ads. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you, Flexo. Shit. Welcome back. Are the ads over? Oh, this sounds terrible. Well, I set up my ad stuff like a long time ago, and I tried to set it up in a way where you don't have pre-rolls. You have to have a minimum amount of ads to not get pre-rolls. as long as you run a minimum number every hour. So I set mine at like an hour, or I set mine at 15 minutes. So like from the beginning of the stream, it's 15 minutes. And then every hour, 15 minutes after the hour, there's ads, and that stops people from getting pre-rolls. Unless we run them on my bathroom breaks, or, you know, like when we take a minute. So, I don't know. I probably need to look at my settings again, because it's probably out of date. 3 minutes. When I set it up, the minimum was 30 seconds. I had to do 30 seconds. I could do 30 seconds. That was the minimum. Yeah, I used to do no ads. Or at least I tried. But then, you know, everybody found out that Twitch was running ads anyways. Even if you had selected no. And then they're like, oh, well, you have to. Thank you. Thank you for watching ads for me, because it's literally giving me a headache. Well, I guess we have pre-rolls, and that explains a lot. Basically, fuck Twitch. And fuck you, pay me. Okay, the UN, blah, 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 Frank and Maya and John and Frank and Vlad and Anne. No ozone layer, no magnetic field to speak of. They were getting fried by radiation as badly as if they were in interplanetary space, to the tune of 10 rems per year. And 1 rem is equal to 100 chest x-rays, or 1 full body scan. I don't know. That might be wrong. But, you know, the higher the rems, the more dangerous. And we get like 1 a year on Earth, I think. Isn't that what it was? No. I don't know. So anyways, bad. Anywhere from 10 to the tune of 10 rems per year. So yeah, that's like 10 times worse. Okay, and so Frank and Maya ordered them to ration their time. So Frank and Maya ordered them to ration their time outdoors. There was a lot of interior work to be done under the hill, getting the last row of chambers finished. And it was possible to dig some cellars below the vaults, giving them some more space protected from radiation. And many of the tractors were equipped to be teleoperated from indoor stations. We call it remote operating these days. Teleoperated from indoor stations. Their decision algorithms handling the details while the human operators watched screens below. So it could be done, but no one liked the life that resulted. Even Sax Russell, who was content to work indoors most of the time, looked a bit perplexed. In the evenings, a number of people began to argue for immediate terraforming efforts, and they made the case with renewed intensity. That's not our decision to make, Frank told them sharply. The UN decides that one. Besides, it's a long-term solution, on the scale of centuries at best. Don't waste time talking about it. Anne said, That's all true, but I don't want to waste my time down here in these caves either. We should live our lives the way we want. We're too old to worry about radiation. Arguments again. Arguments that made Nadia feel as if she had floated off the good solid rock of her planet, back into the tense, weightless reality of the Ares. carping, complaining, arguing, until people got bored or tired and went to sleep. Nadia started leaving the room whenever it began, looking for Hiroko and a chance to discuss something concrete. But it was hard to avoid these matters, to stop thinking about them. Then one night, Maya came to her crying. There was room in the permanent habitat for private talks, and Nadia went with her down to the northeast corner of the vaults, where they were still working on interiors, and sat by her arm to arm, shivering and listening to her, occasionally putting an arm over her shoulder and giving her a hug. "Look," Nadia said at one point, "why don't you just decide? Why don't you quit playing one off against the other?" "But I have decided. It's John I love. It's always been John. But now he's seen me with Frank and he thinks I've betrayed him. It's really petty of him. They're like brothers. They compete in everything, and this time it's just a mistake." Nadia resisted learning the details. She didn't want to hear it. She sat there listening anyway. And then John was standing there before them. Nadia got up to leave, but he didn't appear to notice. "Look," he said to Maya. "I'm sorry, but I can't help it. It's over." "It's not over," Maya said, instantly composed. "I love you." John's smile was rueful. "Yes, and I love you. But I want things simple." "It is simple." "No, it isn't. I mean, you can be in love with more than one person at the same time. Anyone can. That's just the way it is. But you can only be loyal to one. And I want to be loyal to someone who is loyal to me. It's simple, but..." He shook his head. He couldn't find the phrase. He walked back into the eastern row of chambers, disappeared through a door. "Americans," Maya said viciously. "Fucking children." Then she was up through the door after him. But soon she came back. He had retreated to a group in one of the lounges and wouldn't leave. "I'm tired," Nadia tried to say, but Maya wouldn't hear it. She was getting more and more upset. For over an hour they discussed it, over and over. Eventually, Nadia agreed to go to John and ask him to come to Maya and talk it over. Nadia walked grimly through the chambers, oblivious to the brick and the colorful nylon hangings, the go-between that nobody noticed. Couldn't they get robots to do this? She found John, who apologized for ignoring her earlier. "I was upset, I'm sorry. I figured you'd hear it all eventually anyway." Nadia shrugged. "No problem, but look, you have to go talk to her. That's the way it is with Maya. We talk, talk, talk. If you contract to be in a relationship, you have to talk your way all the way through it, and all the way out of it. If you don't, it will be worse for you in the long run. Believe me." That got to him. Sobered, he went off to find her. Nadia went to bed. Okay, 3 more pages. We can do it. Push through, guys. The next day, she was out working late on a trencher. It was the third day of the job. Or it was the third job of the day. And the second had been trouble. The next day, she was out working late on a trencher. It was the third job of the day, and the second had been trouble. Samantha had tried to carry a load on the earth mover blade while making a turn, and the thing had taken a nosedive and twisted the rods of the blade lifters out of their casings, spilling hydraulic fluid all over the ground where it had frozen before it even flattened out. They had had to set jacks under the airborne back end of the tractor and then decouple the entire blade attachment and lower the vehicle onto the jacks. And every step of the operation had been a pain. Then, as soon as that was finished, Nadia had been called over to help with a Sandvik Tubex boring machine, which they were using to drill cased holes through large boulders they ran into while laying a water line from the Alchemists to the permanent habitat. The down-the-hole pneumatic hammer had apparently frozen at full extension, as stuck as an arrow fired most of the way through a tree. Nadia stood looking down at the hammer shaft. "Do you have any suggestions for freeing the hammer without breaking it?" Spencer asked. "Break the boulder?" Nadia said wearily, and walked over and got in a tractor with a backhoe already attached. She drove it over and dug down to the top of the boulder, and then got out to attach a little Allied hydraulic impact hammer to the backhoe. She had just set it in position on the top of the boulder when the down-the-hole hammer suddenly jerked its drill back, pulling the boulder with it and catching the outside of her left hand against the underside of the Allied high ram. I know what some of those words mean. Instinctively, she pulled back, and pain lanced up her arm and into her chest. Ouchie. Instinctively, she pulled back, and pain lanced up her arm and into her chest. Fire filled that side of her body, and her vision went white. There were shouts in her ears. "What's wrong? What happened?" She must have screamed help. She grated. She was sitting, her crushed hand still pinned between rock and hammer. She pushed at the front wheel of the tractor with her foot, shoved with all her might, and felt the hammer rasp her bones over rock. Then she was flopped on her back, the hand free. The pain was blinding. She felt sick to her stomach and thought she might faint. Pushing onto her knees with her good hand, she saw that the crushed hand was bleeding heavily, the glove ripped apart, the little finger apparently gone. She groaned and hunched over it, pressed it to her, and then jammed it against the ground, ignoring the flash of pain. Even bleeding as it was, the hand would freeze in how long? "Freeze, damn you, freeze," she cried. She shook the tears out of her eyes and forced herself to look at it. Shut up, Roar. "Freeze, damn you, freeze," she cried. She shook tears out of her eyes and forced herself to look at it. Blood all over, steaming. She pushed the hand into the ground as hard as she could stand. Already it hurt less. Soon it would be numb. She would have to be careful not to freeze the whole hand. Frightened, she prepared to pull it back into her lap. Then people were there, lifting her, and she fainted. Just kidding. That was it. I didn't realize there was a good stopping point there, so that's it today. Thank you for listening. And her hand was crushed. Cheerio.